Joining us, Major Glenn Ignacio, the retired U.S. Air Force Special Operations Commander. Glenn, always good to see you. Wonder what Trump's teasing us there with this idea that I've learned something, I'm going to hear about it soon when it comes to Putin.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I originally heard about it in Alaska was this trilateral meeting, and the Zelensky Putin meeting I thought was going to be far fetched to make it happen, but it's definitely going to be, where is this going to come? Because I know that the discussions that were going on with China and so forth were, what other security things would they at least consider if the European Union or other countries are going to get involved in Ukraine? So I think it's a little bit more of getting into that, plus the nuclear reactor in Zaporizhia, which they're saying they would work with the United States on. So I think there's a couple things, but nothing I would say is a major difference from what we've been hearing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, you don't get any sense by, for example, that Trump's getting closer to moving on the severe consequences he talked about a couple of weeks ago, or, doing something with regard to tariffs or sanctions. No, it doesn't seem like that's what he's thinking about, but you never know.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's coming to the point, and again, what is the deciding factor in the next coming days? But we've gone past that deadline, and so I
Right.
think that there's going to have to be some real iron-fisted type of decisions made against Russia, and so I think it's time to not talk about it, but the action, and we see
Right.
that
Well,
with
I mean, like we
Trump.
say, did it with India, right? We did the 50% on
Right.
the tariffs, but like now, it's like, what else? What do you do now? To your point, like take some action, try to put some pressure on Putin. I mean, it's got to be something oil related, doesn't it? If it's going to really put the pressure on him.
Yeah, sure would. And in fact, one of the agreements was China and Russia negotiating a pipeline directly for oil for the next 30 years. So how is that going to impact? So
Right.
again, you see India, China, and all those being so pivotal and now part of Russia. It seems like it's almost like a counter NATO. But it starts coming to those things like, for example, we've talked about it, is I don't think Ukraine should become a member of NATO. But what happens if that's brought up? Now that's a serious
Mm.
threat, but are we going to see things that drastic? We don't know. But there's a lot of things in Trump's pocket to be able to start playing and
Well,
ratcheting things up with Putin.
yeah, Putin certainly has never indicated that he's open to that, but he did give us
Exactly.
that comment where it said something like, "Well, I'm fine with them joining the EU." Putin did say that. He says he's always been fine with that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's always been fine with that, probably because it's just the financial basis. But at the same time, it's almost like he's trying to build bricks even stronger on the other side, right? So I think it's not really a threat from the EU, because maybe that's the economic side for Ukraine. But
Right.
from the defense side, we even see France the other day saying they're going to increase and put their hospitals on a war footing, which is one of those things of, does that mean that there's French troops to go in, and that's a NATO country? So a lot of things in play now, including thinking about having civilian contractors possibly in place, which also came out just yesterday. Is that going to be a play? Those are not they're not nations, they're NATO, but they could be there. That's a defense nature,
Mhm.
but I don't still see anything that's going to push Russia out of Ukraine. But this is really going to come down to the tactics of negotiating and keeping Putin at bay. And that's really where we're at. I think we're at the point of action now.
You have a quick thought as an old Air Force guy before we let you go about the Space Command moving from Colorado to Huntsville? I don't know if I've ever asked you about this, but if it was in your time, would you have been a Space Force guy? Maybe you wouldn't have done the Air Force. Maybe you'd be Space Force.
No, Air Force Special Operations was my deal and
All
loved
right.
every minute of it. But yeah, I could see it as a move, because if we talk about that Golden Dome, the Army's missile defense is down in Huntsville, so pairing the two up would be beneficial. Again, the Air Force suggested this in the past, and it was sort of, I think, a political stop. So it is financially better. There's more facilities that can be built up, and it is much more economical to do it. Unfortunately, it's a pretty big hit to Colorado, but I think it's a smart move to combine it with the Army down there in the Redstone Arsenal and Marshall Space Center.
I'm sure they'll be very happy in Huntsville. Glenn, thanks. Always good to talk to you. Glenn Ignacio with us on all those topics.